Hi everyone, I am Stephen Drew from the Architecture Social, and I am here with Peter from Thirdway Architecture. Oh, Peter, hello, how are you?
I'm good, I'm very good. How are you getting on? How are you getting on?
I'm all right. I could hear myself in the background there. Have you not set up properly for this professional podcast?
I've fucked up and I haven't got all the services right. It's just
you haven't got services.
That dodgy laptop speaker, and that's it. So you're stuck with a slight echo.
All right, okay, we'll make do. We'll see how it goes. But dodgy stuff. The Thirdway Architecture's doing so well. You can afford a PC, right?
Well, you've got to be mindful of the times. You know, let's not start spending everything. We just got to be a little bit careful.
Do you know what? My friend sent me on WhatsApp. I think Mayor of London's going to lock it down, Peter. So I can see that you're in your office right now. Just saying. Yeah. That's going to be announced this evening. So make sure you get home early. Walk that dog.
Got to walk that dog because the idiot needs to be walked. But yeah, I think I can't do work from home all the time. I've got to be in the office. I've got to be seeing people. I've got to be seeing things. Yeah. I think staring at a blank wall 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 6 days a week sometimes, I can't suffice it. Can't do it.
It's difficult. And for a bit of context for anyone, so Peter, you are a director with Liam of Thirdway Architecture, which is, in my opinion, is a really successful architecture practice. And I did listen to your business. See, I did. Like I told you before, I did research. And the business architecture one, it was really good. It was really good. And I agree that actually the one interesting thing about Thirdway Architecture is it does feel like it's been going a lot longer than 3 years. I mean, the projects are really great. So there you go. You got a genuine compliment from me. You didn't expect that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
I really like them. They're amazing, right? And I'm like, how have you walled this up in 3 years? Have you got the secret recipe to architecture? Or is it a lot of hard work?
We took a punt. I think we're not going to pretend and say that we earn it in every right, but we did take a punt. I think we've been really lucky because we were working at a previous practice together at MAP. We were there for 3-4 years, and Liam was there for 7. And we don't want to be 40 and being a young architecture practice. We kind of want to get on with it because it's just so slow and architecture is so bloody stuffy. And actually, there was an opportunity to kind of do something else. And we ended up doing a JV with Thirdway Interiors, which is design and build, which everyone thinks is like the dark horse of design. It's like,
right. Okay. 1 second. JV. Use the jargon. What's JV?
Joint venture. Doing a joint venture with.
Okay.
Doing a joint venture with Thirdway Interiors and. Like in traditional architecture school, they don't like design and build because I think it's naff. I think it's just money led and don't go there. And actually, it turns out that they were bloody good. They were really exciting. They knew what they're doing. Great designers. They smashed out the park. And we're like, well, actually, in 6 months, we went from concept to designed and finished building, rather than the other building I was working on, which took 3 years. So we'll have a bit of that. And the other bit is. Because it's actually such a small industry, my brother is best friends with the creative director of Thirdway Interiors. So we've got the drinks going and the conversation flowing.
And a chat.
And one thing led to another, like not quite a one-night stand, but turned into something much more fruitful.
Very fruitful.
We ended up buying Thirdway Architecture on the back of it. So we got invited to set up the business. It sort of sits under an umbrella group. So there's Thirdway Group is sort of the parent company, and they've got loads of subsidiary other businesses. And Thirdway Architecture is one of them. So we started in 2017 as two people, and then we quickly turned into, we're now 24. So not too shabby.
Okay. So if anyone wants to write down the blueprint of how to do Thirdway Architecture, they can listen to the Business of Architecture where you give away all your trade secrets.
Yeah,
so
I want to give it all away to make sure that we suffer as much as possible. Yeah.
Come on, you're doing well. You're not suffering. It's a good building, right?
It's good. It's good. It's very good. It's all good.
I love it. And so that podcast, I mean, it's a good podcast anyway, and that was a nice episode. It talks a lot about the business, your approach, and everything like that. So there's a few things going on you, because I actually I did a similar thing. I worked for Bespoke Careers, so the big recruitment company, good recruitment company. And I had something similar when I was 26 and I went, do you know what? I'm going to go and set up a recruitment business. And I didn't think about it too much. I set off with someone else at the time. And we were like, best buddies, going to conquer the world. And then you get there. And the reality was it was me in front of a white desk with a phone. And we're like, okay, we've got to do it now. And there was that moment, and you just think, okay, we're here. Did you feel a similar thing when you sat up?
Yeah, there was massively, and I think Liam won't ever let it down, that he's of the volition that I actually turned it down, which I don't believe and I don't remember at all. But he's like, can you imagine if you were, turned it down, and it'll be awful. Think about that. But the way it kind of started off is that we had Christmas drinks at Thirdway's old office with Rob Gorda, and that's where the kind of conversation started. And we text Ben, who's the CEO, and, do you fancy it? And which he was like, yeah, all right, give it a whirl. It's probably easy as that. But then it comes down to we've asked, they said yes, and now it's actually, do we jump? Do we jump and try and swim this, or we just drown and die? And then you're like, oh, is it right? And even us, we're going, it's design and build. Everyone tells us design and build is bad, and everyone tells us that you should be doing your own thing. You go and set up your own company, and actually, there's a lot of naysayers. And I don't know if it's because it was something slightly different. We have set up something slightly different, because we're working very closely with other companies. We're under the same grid. We get more opportunity, and that's why it's so exciting. And what the real ambition for me and Liam was, we didn't want to have just a whole load of concept work, a whole load of competitions that we didn't win because we were so young, and just kind of run the treadmill for the next 5 years and then eventually get a big break. What was really great for us was that they had loads of they kept telling us they've got loads of existing clients, and we should be able to win some work. So on that merit, it's like, well, okay, let's say it didn't work. We had 2 years of giving it a whirl, and actually we went back into the rat run. It's like, well, that one was a good laugh. That was solid. I'll take that, and we'll just go again somewhere else. So actually, from the risk level, we were both, obviously 3 years younger, easy maths. And actually, by that point, we were young enough to say that it wouldn't have been a waste of time, and we can just go back into what we thought was our more traditional trajectory of our career. So that was an easy kind of, option for us, and we took a punt, and it's come out not too shabby.
I think it's great. I agree that. So I ran that business for 2.5 years. In the end, we both went our separate ways. I learned so much. That you do learn so much, and there is something about being thrown into the deep end where, the amount of times I've messed up, or the amount of times I got things wrong, and you never make the same mistake again. And I think it toughens you up, because I always joke that it takes a lot to really, once you run your own business, when you go into practice, because what I do now is I lead the architecture team in a large company, which has certain parallels to what Thirdway does, because what I like about McDonald Company is I'm given complete autonomy to do what I want, provided that I get stuff over the line or things are going in the right way. But I can, there's a complete free reign that I would never have anywhere else. Who else would let me go online honking a horn everywhere, right?
Yeah. Oh, I think that's exactly it. I don't regret for 1 second what the decision me and Liam took. It's been absolutely mad. The opportunity we had are been mad. We have no right to be the size of practice out that we are, doing the size of work that we are, with the amount of clients that we do. That's not anything to do with our skill set. We've just been really, really lucky. We had an opportunity, we took it. And then I think the other side of it, which has been absolutely mental good, is that we had loads of good friends and good friends or colleagues we used to work with from other practices, from the likes of DMFK, from PSC & Co, from Allies and Morris and others, that thought, yeah, I'll have a bit of that. I will join you guys, and we'll get stuck in, because we want to offer the opportunity for people to kind of lead designs, work with clients directly, be on site, really take charge, give them the autonomy that we didn't necessarily have at previous practices. Also with the responsibility, got to make sure you step up and deliver. But it's that excitement, that exposure to things that typically you might not get in a larger practice or doing sort of commercial buildings like we do, and that's where it's been brilliant. Don't get me wrong, there's been some difficult conversations, challenging times, some late nights, some very anxious days, and that happens. It's not going to be like a free ride every day, every week. And so there's that nice balance between, I've got a deadline for a competition at 5 o'clock today. So in the back of my head, I've got, all right.
Have you? Yeah. And you were speaking to me. Well, that went wrong, didn't it?
I've got, I'm not going to miss an appointment. At the same time, it's just, you always got something rolling in the back of your head about what's going to be where and what's going to be submitted. You've got to make sure that, the company runs and you're winning work, you're exposing yourself and all that kind of stuff. And, but it's a good laugh, isn't it? It's great. It's running a business and you're drawing buildings and then someone builds them, which is mental to me. I still can't get over the fact that we've looked at over 210 buildings since we started the business. We've got 70 live jobs, of which, 8 are cut and carved complete already. That's sound. I'll take that as a good career.
I think you've done well. I quite liked it when I was listening, and I think you hit the nail on the head. So, you from admiring companies like PC & Co. and Buckley Gray, and then going up against them and occasionally losing and then winning, there's quite a nice feeling to that in a sportsman way. And it's a little bit like I have it sometimes in what my role does of having worked at Bespoke, which is well regarded as arguably the leader in architectural recruitment. When you beat them on the job in a fair and competitive way, almost like a gentleman's sport, there's something quite nice about it, something rewarding, and there's a little twinkle in your eye. And then, of course, it's real life. You might lose one after or what have you. But to go and be in the same realms of people that you looked up to, or quote unquote real companies, that thing of like, you're like, they're a real architectural practice, and imposter syndrome kicks in sometimes, and you're late at night going, oh, but that must be a nice feeling, right? Bit surreal though.
It is a great feeling. But it's to really reiterate the point that it's not me or Liam doing it. It's actually seeing the guys in the team absolutely smash it. And when they get going, we're like, we pitch pretty well all the time, but when they pitch, like when the cards on the table and they go hard at it, it's like, fucking hell, that is a scorcher. And then you're seeing, sometimes you get wind of what someone else has pitched. At the moment we're up against DMFK on a particular project, and it's like the feedback we've had is, ours is the best pitch. Ours is actually a stronger design. You're like, wow, these are sublime practices. And I think the architects in the team on that particular pitch was Chelsea Rashty, who used to work at Pearson Co. She's led it. She's a 2-3 year qualified architect, leading on a design against DMFK. You're like, yeah, that's strong. And I think so. I've said before, we've lost against Gensler, we've lost against Pearson Co. and we've lost numerous times against BGY, which does my head in. But there was exceptional practice, so I don't hate it. It's just like, I really wish I was on the other side of the win table every now and then. But having said that, the more and more that we're getting ourselves exposed, the more and more that we're having opportunities, we find ourselves in a position where we have beat like Stiffen Trevelyan, we have beat GPAD, we have beat Pearson Co. We have, we're coming up against Gensler, we're coming up against Shepherd Robson. But this is not because I want to be victorious over these guys. Actually, it's a real privilege to be benchmarking, near to them, and we don't take that as for granted. We're just really lucky, and we're really privileged that we get to pitch on these types of buildings.
I think you hit the nail on the head as well, though. On your website, what have you got? You got that interesting quote, and it's like, the strength of the wolf is the pack.
The wolf is the pack. The strength of the pack.
I need to put on my movie. The strength of the wolf is in the pack. I love it, right? But it's true. You can only do so much, and there is that weird and wonderful thing about running a business where sometimes the biggest excitement and sometimes the biggest headache is juggling all the spinning plates of people, as in the value when you get someone on your team who's kicking ass, taking names, helping you cross the line, doing the competition while you're talking to the Welsh guy in the podcast in the other room, making sure that everything's going ahead. That's the people you want. And when you have them, it really helps push the practice forward, and you need to hold on to those people. So I bet you build up a nice, fantastic team. I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, we've been really lucky with the architects and designers that we work with. I think it comes with what we're trying to offer, and we're not perfect. I know we don't ever pretend that we get everything right every time, but what we're trying to offer is, you want to design, you want to lead on those projects. Here's the autonomy to go and do that. But the flip side is here's the responsibility. So I think a lot of people kind of they want all the autonomy to go and do the design, speak to clients, But actually they're really fearful of actually what that means in terms of responsibility. And, listen to some of the other podcasts about that imposter syndrome kind of creeping in, about whether they feel they're good enough to do that. Can they take the responsibility to do that? Am I a good enough designer to kind of pitch on these things? And it's that kind of that constant balance between exposing people more and more and more. One of the first things that me and Liam learned, especially as a director of the business, is that we were like, we had no autonomy. Like, we're rubbish. We can do anything, and so we'll give it to you. You can do anything. Like, go crazy on these designs. It's mad. And actually, the feedback was, no, yeah, that's great and all, but we want some structure too. We want some feedback. We want some critical feedback about, am I doing this right? Have I passed some certain thresholds? Am I going in the right direction? And actually, that was quite. Because we didn't have anything in the old practice about that sense of kind of complete autonomy. We went the other way. And actually, it's finding that balance where some people, more senior, more experienced, can kind of go on those journeys for themselves. And we can check in every now and then. Whereas maybe some of the junior members of the team that, again, have got all the expertise, all the vigor and the creativity to be amazing. They just need a bit more structure, a bit more guidance to kind of help them be epic. And I think that's where we're learning that each individual is kind of has their own nuances about how they learn, about how they best perform. Not everyone's like this big extroverted epic designer and they're going to set the world on fire with one drawing. Actually, in there somewhere there are some magic ideas and some really beautiful kind of moments that will eventually eke out. But it's working with those people to find that and give them the confidence that they can be vulnerable with us and vulnerable with the clients to say, look, I've got this design, I've got this idea. What do you think? And even when the client goes, I hate it, go away, you're fired. It's going, well, actually, it was a good idea. They just say they didn't like it, or maybe we could have tweaked it next time, and kind of re-engaging and finding ways to support and suffer the losses together. Show, but also be clear about, hey, you didn't do it. You didn't step up. You have to take responsibility and some of that burden. But it's not over. It's just we've got to find a way of learning and bring them back in. So it's like push and pull, give and take, and it's not a smooth ride at all. It's the ever lasting peaks and troughs of practice, of individual practice, of group practice, and constantly having those dialogues with the team. I think, and that's. I've got the point of your question. I've gone on a tangent.
Yeah, you're just saying basically what the kind of person that makes up the magic of Thirdway architecture and what you look for. So my other question, which leads off to that, is how do you find Peter when you're interviewing people, right? Or because you've seen two sides of the coins now, right? So. Yeah. You've been that part one, all nervous, looking for a job, like, oh, hello, and you know the feeling. It's absolute nightmare, isn't it? You're like, please, can I have an opportunity? Thank you very much. And then you've done that, and then you've done your part two, and so now you're on the other side of the table. You're the wolf, so to speak, in the analogy of this. But what do you look for in an interview? What kind of catches your eye? In terms of when you're interviewing someone, is it personality or work?
Yeah, I think the personality thing is massive, and that's not to say you have to be a big extrovert, because I don't want anyone thinking I've got to be loud and proud and all of this. It's actually, you can be soft, you can be gentle, you can you don't have to know all the answers, but it's about sharing ideas with those that you're interviewing with. We've had some really excellent portfolios come through. Leave what people produce in the BA and MA work, but I'm speaking maybe out of turn here, but at the larger architecture schools, the more established ones, there is an ego that comes with that. They're like, you're going to hire me because I'm that good. So wait, let's just, pause a bit, because the quality of work is one thing. Your ability to be a team player is something completely else. And we've taken a bit of a line from the CEO, Ben Giller, which is we don't seek to go and hire the most qualified person per se in the traditional sense. They've got a first from the top 10 architecture schools in the UK. Actually, we want to find the best person for Thirdway as a group that would, really kind of be on board into our company culture. They can see the advantages of being in a big family, really. That's how it's kind of operated. Even though, it's 220 people across the group, we're 24, but it is a big family. We look after each other, we try and engage each other, we have fun with each other, we wind each other up. But that's more important, that you go through the highs and lows together. So if someone's coming to the board and saying, I'm the best thing since sliced bread, it's like, hold on a second. We want people to kind of like support projects with us and lead elements with us. And I think I've had more fun with people that are kind of engaged and they want to tell stories, they're inquisitive. And again, I don't feel like you have to ask a question. It's like, the best thing you can do is ask a question at the end. No, yeah, no question. Don't worry about it. It's fine. You've got to think later. Send me a tweet. It's fine. It doesn't. How can you be an honest person? The reason I encourage that is also it's really important for the interviewee to know that the company is not right for them. I know we're in an even worse, we're in an economic downturn. Jobs are going to be really hard to come by. The RIB are publishing more and more job losses. But you still have to have a sense that you're in control somewhere. You are not at the behest of employees. We want you, not the other way around. We need great talent. And I think being honest in the best way that you can, because it's not easy. Being honest is actually very hard to kind of be yourself, because you want to put on a character. I'm putting on a character now. You have to find a way of being vulnerable, being honest, because then they can see the real you, and hopefully you can see the real them, and hopefully you can decide, all right, actually maybe it's not right for me. Maybe the company culture is too outlandish, it's too extroverted, or vice versa, that's actually quite quiet and quite dour, and it's too sort of traditional. And then both parties, both interviewer and interviewee, can have a real sense. And I think you're going to get better opportunities, because then they're not just judging you on a beautiful drawing or, a drawing that you need a lot of support on, because they can see there's a raw talent there, but maybe the school you went to wasn't the best. Maybe the opportunities you had at the universities weren't great, because you messed around in A-levels. That's not. It's just you shouldn't be punished for some of these things you didn't get, and the opportunity was diminished slightly. So, if you can find the right outfit, they can identify an ability to upskill and get better. I think you're much more employable than that someone that's coming and going, yeah, I'm A class, man. No, you give me 50 grand a year and hire me. It's like, no, just wait.
Come back down to earth.
Yeah. So I think, that's what I would say from seeing on the flip side. And I've always been I've never seen myself as a particularly excellent designer. I'm not, I didn't get good grades at MA. I was the third worst grader at the Bartlett.
Nice.
I don't come from a good. Obviously, it's a good school, and I'm not unashamed of that side. But third low is great. Let's not kid ourselves. But I've always been quite verbose in interviews. So I think I've been quite lucky in that sense. That I can be quite dramatic, and I think that can hold well, and that's good. I mean, it might annoy the arse out of some people, which is also fine. But so I've been quite fortunate. But for those that are introverted, you shouldn't be the blockade to get a great job. Just thinking, exposing yourself, and a good employee will see that. And I think if a bad, if someone can't see that, they're a bad employee. Walk away, don't bother. What is the point? There's enough jobs there or enough opportunity to kind of find something good.
I agree. It was interesting because we had a little Twitter exchange at the start, and then my mate Ryan, who I studied, Ryan Holland, he's gone so far. Yeah, Ryan Holland. I studied with him. Yeah, is he your friend? Is he?
Well, I was at Matt, so Soda was in the office above us.
Yeah, above the Burger King. Yeah, I know exactly where you guys were. The weirdest location Yeah, it was you got, was it Leicester Square or whatever, is it?
It was worst. I couldn't think of a worse place to not company-wise, but just location, because it was, you go through literally the back door of Burger King, you go through their service entrance, and once a month they used to clean the vat out, so it stunk of crap. So it was a really unpleasant way to start the day. And then you had like the golden hour, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. No tourists, no buskers, no beatboxers. And 10 a.m. every day, Monday to Friday. I can't do this anymore. I can't tolerate. 3 years I survived that. So yeah, it was awkward. That was my first ever live beatboxing as well.
I love that. I was quite enjoying it. I feel like I'm there right now. I want to get a Burger King and pop up to the office. Yeah, Ryan, I studied with him, and why I brought Ryan up is because he sometimes used to butt heads with one or two of the tutors, but he's done incredibly well, and I think Ryan's a really good example of. You can go so far. And whereas for quite funny, I mean, I had a 2-1 quite comfortably, and I don't do architecture anymore, right? So, and then I did a podcast with Chris Hartis, who's one of the directors from Squires and worked at Canary Wharf, and he was the same. Who said I was out partying, and he got so bad grades he couldn't even get a job in architecture. He had to go down to a building site where they told him to hold the measuring tape out quite literally so they can get measurements. And then he's the design director of Squires. So I think it kind of it all goes around. But what I want to do now, we're gonna experiment, Peter, for a new thing. So where's that accent from? Where do you come from? Remind me.
I'm from Sussex. I was born in West Sussex in my family house. Yeah. Okay,
I've got here. We got the Sussex bells of the past. Okay, right. I want you to tell me. Listen to the bells. The bells. Okay. You're going to listen to the bells and concentrate.
Yeah.
Now, what the bells are asking me. We're going to go back. When did you think I'm going to be an architect in Sussex?
Oh, I never wanted to be an architect. I'm not sure I ever did or do.
These bells don't work. Rubbish.
My intro into architecture was sheer dumb luck and desperation. I was rubbish at. I was okay at GCSE. I was rubbish at A levels. I got a 2 C's and a D, or a C and 2 D's in English language, history, and photography. So they weren't even that. Photography was sort of the one art thing. And the rest was just a bad writer, even though I try and write now. So I didn't actually learn anything. And then I was good at cadets. I was good at cadets, which is just telling people to march around at a square, shoot some guns, and want to fly but never fly, because you only got to, they only took people out flying once a year. So I wasn't really much air cadets. It was much just running around in a blue costume. But it was vocational, and I think that's where later in my career, that's where I think I learned best. So it was really vocational. You did all like the air cadet stuff, and so I wanted to be in the Royal Air Force. So I went to go and interview at the OASC, and they said no, because I was 18 and I wanted to be an officer and send men around the battlefield. It was absolutely idiotic. So they go away and travel for a year and kind of try and be a manager somewhere, do more courses. I did that. And I had bad A levels, and I went around and traveled. And I came back, and I actually passed the interview at that stage. But I actually found out I failed my medical because I got a dodgy nose. And I was absolutely devastated. I had no A levels. I had no UCAS application. I had nothing. I was working at Costa for a year and a half, earning minimum wage. I actually really liked it, so I'm not down being that. Because it was kind of like weirdly mindfulness in terms of it was just repeat exercise, and that was okay. But my brother was working at Gensler. He was actually recently left, but he's been there for 12 years. And he had graduated from Ravensbourne, which does interior design, environmental architecture. Idea. You can see where my tutor Leighton Reed got the idea from. And he was good friends with Leighton, who was the director of interior design. And he was like, my brother's, doesn't know what he's going to do. He hasn't really got many options. Would you mind speaking to him, helping out? And this comes down to privilege, and I accept that massively. That I was in a really fortunate position, and a lot of other people don't get this. Almost, I don't know anyone else. We got a meeting with the professor and director of a course, but I also wasn't going to turn it down. And I went and met, and Leighton's kind of this maverick character. He was ex-Bartlett some 40 years ago. Good friends with the chaps at AHMM. So he knows his people and he's got a great network, but he loves not doing things by the book. He's almost like, if it's by the book, he'll say no and do it somewhere else. And I was like, I don't have a future. So he said, well, it's a ridiculous line, but he said, you got to give blood. I was like, I'll give anything. What do you want? So you give blood and I'll stick you on this course. So he actually he got round UCAS, just let me on. And I didn't know how to draw. I wasn't an artist. I didn't know anything. And I got put on this course. And I was like, well, I'm 2 years behind all my mates who went straight to university. I don't know what I'm going to do. Here's a guy saying you can go onto a course. And my brother did and got first in my head, starting a very successful career at Gensler. I'm not going to say no to that. I will lap it up and take it. And I don't know if it was out of sheer guilt, or I think probably a lot of it's to do with guilt and a lot of it to do with desperation, not to kind of like fail personally. I worked every hour under the sun to kind of do that course, and I did well there. Ravensbourne's not a high-ranking university, but actually there's some really great students that come out of it, and a lot of them are now in senior positions across large interior and architecture firms across London, from MCM to Gensler to Rob Goulder, who's creative director of Thirdway. He's actually in my brother's year. To Scott Malin, who's head of design for Thirdway Architecture, so they do spit out some pretty wicked designers. So I left that course after 3 years. I graduated, and then I went to Foster's and hated it. I hate my life and hated Foster's, and it was crummy and don't ever work there. But it's good for the CV. So maybe work there. Maybe I'm not allowed to say that. I probably shouldn't say that, should I?
It's an opinion piece. Piece. Look, some people enjoy Foster's, right? You didn't particularly enjoy it.
Foster's opens a number of opportunities. It's an equal opportunities employer. It's fantastic. It certainly challenges the dynamic of architecture in a world that we should really be privileged to be in, even though I worked 80 hours a week and didn't get any overtime. But it's great. I'm really worried I should say. Anyway, the point is, it was great for the CV. And then I went to the Bartlett, which was, I don't know if it was a mistake or not, because it was hard. I mean, it was really hard. I was struggling, from day one, really. Like, the guys in there are mental. They're so talented. They are so good. And a lot of them don't do architecture. They'll do like Arduino stuff and like make code and like make going up.
I did the Arduino. I wasn't very good at it.
I don't understand it. It's mental, and people are doing mental stuff with algorithms and stuff. It's like, yeah, but where? My dad made always a point. He came to the end of the year show after my fourth year, and he walked around. He's like, I've looked at all the plans, some 200 students. I can't find one place where they've designed somewhere you can do a shit. And I was like, come on, Dad, I'll take that. He's not an architect. That's what he's looking for. So I was like, yeah, I get it's because it's so like, it is so, I mean, they do push the boundary. It is kind of poetic. It is amazing. I don't take anything away from what people do there, but I found it very hard, and I struggled all the way through. I was only like really fortunate that I had a really great tutor in James O'Leary. He's still at the Bartlett, and he just kind of like, just kept me going. He sort of, I don't know if he wanted to or out of sheer like I don't want to kind of dwell on it. My mum died during my fourth year, so I was in obviously not a great headspace either. So I hope James didn't have guilt, but he somehow just got me by the scruff and just kind of like sent me through the whole process. And I still, on record, I think I'm the only student at the Bartlett to have had someone do a human shit on their project.
That sounds disgusting, actually. It sounds funny, but I wouldn't want to be in the room. Probably stinks.
So the I don't. Again, you said I shouldn't have sworn. So I think I've sworn about 50 times.
No, you can. It's all right. It's explicit. Don't worry. And
so my fifth year project, I was kind of interested in homelessness as a subject title, but in a way that was kind of anti-typical architecture. A lot of it's like paper-based. Let's solve the homeless problem by designing these really expensive, overly designed answers that never get built. So they're always around, actually, I think the ego of the architect rather than actually the problem that they're trying to solve. So I wrote, my whole thesis was about, can we design something that's affordable that actually engages the problem? So I was like, I've got 400 quid left of my student loan. I need to build something for 400 quid that does something that engages the issue. So we had this typically Bartlett-esque. It was the scattered domesticity, the scattered house, or just broken house, or something along those lines, or a lot simpler. That you have bits of the house around the city. So I thought I'd build the kitchen bit. And the Bartlett has a kind of a big workshop outside. But the year before, I was actually I dropped a metal frame on my head at the end of year show and was bleeding, and the ambulance came.
Oh, wow.
So the next year, they actually stopped the entire ability for students to make their own show because of my doing.
Look what you done. Look what you done, Peter.
So I obviously so it was my own kind of fault. So then the workshop was filled with people making the show. So I had to build my structure, and it was it was a proper single story kitchen pop up. Had folding out tables, had a little terrace, it had the everything. And on the one day, it was raining a lot that summer. One day it was sunny. I got there really early. It's my one day to paint. I've got 2 weeks beforehand in. I've got to paint this thing and get it on. And as I go in, there's a geezer in there. I'm like, what are you doing? He was like, oh yeah, I'm really sorry. I slept in here. I was like, well, I'm not going to get annoyed. The whole point of this project is to kind of be focused on homelessness. So I was like, okay, well, all right. So I took him for a coffee and some food, and we had a really, really genuine chat. He'd come down from Liverpool looking for work and hadn't got any. But he went on his way, and I went back to making the structure, and I could smell defecation. I could smell it was, this is very bad. I can't, and I wasn't angry at all. I was just like, this is bad. And I just got cleaned everything up and what have you. And it was still there. I was like, what is that smell? I can't believe it. I've cleaned this thing up and I've moved all the wood away, and I'm perplexed about what's going on. As I kind of I'm sort of bending over trying to find out what it is, my leg just slips up from underneath me, and I turn around. He's, the poor guy's got nowhere to go, and I sympathise, but he obviously didn't want to go outside and defecate on my model, on my building, and squashed it into it. So I spent the next day cleaning it. I asked for an extension at the Bartlett. They denied it. Never mind. So.
Wow. Well, he left that part out until after the coffee, didn't he? You enjoyed that? Well, look, have a grande, please. Never see you again. Thank you so much. Well, hey,
poor guy. It's nothing on him. He's just trying to get by. But it was an unexpected blip in the day.
I think that's brilliant. So, wow, that's completely taken me by surprise. Well, in theory, your project, well, maybe it's a testament. Look, is you were making buildings which were used and realized back then by someone that inadvertently went in there. Hey, that wasn't very theoretical for Bartlett, was it? No, that was quite literal. Yeah.
And it was base level. It was a box. But my mates I'm still friends with from the Bartlett always take the mickey at me for that. But it was practical, and that was my shtick. It worked, it was a user experience thing. And actually, I've taken, and this comes down to the honest point. It's not, that's what I know. That's how I think. That's how I talk about spaces. That's how I talk about architecture. It is the manifestation of what's real. What does actually get built? How do people actually use it? How do people actually engage it? It was a pop-up kitchen that sold soup And some guy thought, no, I don't want to buy a soup in it. I want to crap in it. Fine, actually, that's how you want to use it. That's much more real. Let's talk about that instead. Let's talk about the lack of places for people to actually, have good healthcare in the city because there's no public toilets. That's a much better conversation about urbanism and architecture than I think about than some of the algorithm stuff. But that's just me. That's my own shtick, and I get that. But it's me being honest about what I know, what I like, what I think I can add to the conversation, because everyone else that's far more academic, a lot smarter than I can take on the probably more challenging ideas around, computer science and how that works in architecture. It's just out of my remit. I'm not going to pretend. I'm not even going to try and engage that conversation because I don't have the mental capacity to take on those ideas. What I can do is maybe talk about social things and social ideas and people experience. And that to me is far more invigorating, far more exciting. And it has a realism that is both architectural. And I think the second bit is humanizing. That's why I actually you before. That's why I like this. This is probably quite a boring episode for everyone else. But for, listening to the podcast it's very accessible. It's much more humanizing. It's about the realism of how people get involved in architecture or don't get involved in architecture. Have different career paths. That's what I think is really exciting. That's what I think is really interesting. And so often you get told, especially in hoity-toity architecture schools, it has to be more than this. How do we put so many different verbs into a sentence that I don't understand? I have to use a dictionary in one hand and the paper in the other to basically say is I want to put a white box in a bigger white box. All right, that's cool. I don't understand what's going on. What are people talking about? How do I go in this building and that's it? But no, I can't talk. It has to be. It's that constant conflict. It's like architecture is designed for people, yet people can't understand architectural dialogue and theory. So what's going on? I don't get it.
I think that was fantastic. I've been blown away by that. What's quite interesting is I think you don't realize there was a revelation in there you might not have been aware of. I think that's the first time I've heard of someone from the Bartlett build a building. Only joking, Bartlett School. It's fantastic work. I'm only joking. First building ever made by Bartlett, used by the homeless guy who shit in the building. Fantastic. All right. Well, hey, so from shit houses to Thirdway architecture and winning projects and competing against BYG or BGY.
BGY. BGY. God, BGY, they're good, man. You just... I don't know how they do it. They're very good.
Well, that's good. Well, it's important that you get good companies because they all keep each other on their toes. It's inspiration. It's like precedence, isn't it? Not copying each other or anything like that. But if someone has a good project, you learn something from it. That's how a design's improved. So, look, I think this has been a bit of a whirlwind. I'm conscious of your 5 o'clock deadline.
All I've got to do is submit. I've got to export.
You got to press the button.
Export.
Oh yeah.
I'm good to go. That's why I was a bit late to this. I was like, I just need to get it last bit, get the fee proposal right, done. I've got to write my email about it's a privilege to be involved in this project, and I'm so supportive of everything you're doing. And
have you got any questions for me? There you go. It's not fair. I ask all the questions, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, this is. This is like, do you have a question? Let's not ask you if I haven't got one.
Don't worry, it's not that.
No. Hey, what do you do? Like, not in a facetious. What's the kind of? You talked about it before, like, it's a passion project, but there's a natural sort of take up in terms of how you host your podcast. I mean, what's the driver? What's pleasure?
Yeah, few real deals. Okay, so in recruitment, I'd always be bumped. Say now you've given me a particular role, and it would be you need a technologist, or you need someone that's run the project for a few years. What you'll find is that in recruitment, you'll put ads out. So a part 1 might apply, or a part 2, and I'm working for you. I'm against the clock. And so I always try to impart wisdom a little bit on the students. But there's a very limited time period to do that because due to the nature, like you with deadlines, there's only so much time I can give. So you try to give 2 or 3 minutes and get someone in the right direction. that's going to be a short-term fix, but it's not a long-term problem solution. And what I find as well is that obviously it's really valuable to speak to someone one-on-one, but if there was a way to kind of unpack information that I would find really useful when I was a part one and make it available to all, then that would be really helpful. And so basically, on the architecture team at McDonald Company, and I'm happy to be quite open about it, we were doing really well, really, really well. And coronavirus came, and half the roles just went off the cliff. It was as if, imagine if I had a few roles in your practice, and you're like, Steve, I've got to worry right now about my existing staff. Thank you very much, but we're going to recruit in a few months' time. And so our team, I volunteered to go on furlough, to be honest, and I went on furlough in April, and the first month I thought, you know what, I'm going to make the most of it. And I had a few beers and wines, and I watched Netflix. I did it all. I didn't go around doing paintings and all this stuff. I had a right good laugh, and it was great for 1 month. But after a month, I was like, oh, okay. I felt like I completed Netflix, and it would be like it'd be like that screen would be there, and it'd be like, are you still there? And you're like, I'm still here.
Yeah. It's almost like you wish it didn't ask you. You feel like a bit of guilt. It's like, yeah, I am.
Yeah.
What's it to you? What are you trying to say?
So I was like, well, I want to be productive, but I need to be passionate about it. And I'm like you, I can't fake passion. I either want to do it or not. And then I thought about, and I was stumbling along at one point, and because when I had my business, I could like yourself in business, I learned certain skills to a point. I've never been interested in coding per se, but I'll code a little bit to achieve a goal and then leave it. And so over the years, I learned a bit of website, I learned a bit of this, learned a bit of that. And then I found a solution online where I could visualize actually solving the problem. I was like, wouldn't it be cool if there was a community? Because there's Facebook groups everywhere, but we can swear in this episode, so they're full of shit. They're full of people. They're full of people with distracting things. It's a bit like sometimes in Clarkwell, it's good, but then you walk down and there's a million people selling tiles, right? And look, and I'm in recruitment as well. I understand the world of sales, and that's fine. But I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice if there was an area where people could talk openly and contribute? And I'm kind of at that point where in one way, I don't need to prove myself, so I can make my own rules up. And what I quite like is the way I see the Architecture Social is a platform for people to use. And so I've done my bit, which is kind of walking people through careers and kind of giving that guide in a bit of a shitty situation right now, how to tackle the problem on how you can do it. But I'm quite in the next phase of the social. It's these weird and quirky things. So we have a book club on there right now. There's like 5 or 6 people in the book club, and everyone was posting this morning saying, my book's coming from Amazon and they're going to read the book. And I'm like, that's cool. I quite like the idea of a book club. I'm like, I'm not going to be, and I joked, I said, you're not going to get me in it because I can barely read a page without my brain going off. But why not, right? Someone wants to do a book club. And I quite like from your point of view, that there's a chance where you say, now you get a role, you can post it direct to part ones, direct to architects, and engage with the community. So why not? It was the short answer.
I think it's from listening to all your previous podcasts and going on the app. It's great. I genuinely really enjoyed it. It's been really kind of interesting, and also you're giving some of the people you've had on, I don't think would normally get exposure like this or get to kind of share their stories like that. And I think that's and again, it's come to that point, like, you haven't got to be on this high horse, high echelon of like, kind of blue sky thinking. Actually, those graduating, coming up with really excellent, interesting perspectives and ideas that I think should be shouted about. And I think
well, I appreciate it. Do you know what? And it's the same thing as like, watching a podcast on Dizzy and talking to Thomas Heatherwick it is interesting. Okay. But I'm interested in the guys below Heatherwick, or I'm interested in the real world, or people's failures, people doing well and making mistakes. And that to me is the interesting conversation. And if we can facilitate that, then awesome. And I quite like that I can get away with bells and horns and all this stuff. But it's a bit of fun. Yeah. It's a bit of, we were talking about it because it's like on, there's nothing interested on LinkedIn. It's so boring. So if we can just like boring police, then just have a bit of fun with it all, then that's then maybe learn a few things along the way. Why not, right? That's the perfect combination.
I'm big fan. I think you're absolutely right. I think a little bit of ego takedown is fantastic. I think this is a very healthy antidote to the normal architectural dialogue. I think this is exactly what it needs.
Well, I appreciate that. We'll do more stuff. So on that note, so if anyone is interested in Thirdway architecture or yourself, so you're actually signed up on the Architectural Social, so someone can message you there. They can message you on LinkedIn. I mean, if we don't have a lockdown, in theory, you are knocking around in London. You're running the practice with Liam, which is awesome. And if anyone's looking for a job or anything right now, do you have an email that they can send their CV portfolio to?
We're always kind of keeping an open mind. It's hello@thirdwayarchitecture.co.uk, .com, but it doesn't get missed. Liam checks them all. We always he kind of pings all the interesting ones through, so we'll review them. So don't hesitate. And even if it's some, if you want to chat or you want some advice or anything like that, we fairly open to all those sort of things. And don't hesitate to call, because actually people like speaking to people. People like people. They forget that. So I think it's just, so don't just pester me, pester everyone that you can.
I love it. Okay. And the test, if anyone's listening, what image should someone send to hello@Thirdway Architecture? Should we put an image of a bell? Put an image of something? So we should actually see if someone emails you an image of something?
What image? Stick an image of a bell and see what happens.
Right. Everyone, email the bell to hello@thirdwayarchitecture.co.uk or .com.
You know what? This is really embarrassing. I'm actually to check. I don't know. What is it? Hold on. It's .com. There you go. .com. I can't.
Of course it's .com. We knew that. We knew that.
That is embarrassing. That's a good way to end. Yeah. .com.
Thirdway.com. Yes, so you almost tried to give me the .co.uk, try to get rid of them bell images.
Yeah, I'm going to hide myself. Thirdwayarchitecture.com. There you go.
All right, send them bells over. All right, Peter, amazing having you here. I really can't wait to see how far and how big Thirdway Architecture gets. I know design quality is the most important thing, but hey, keep doing them amazing buildings. Keep giving PSC & Co a run for their money. And literally from shit houses to all shit hot buildings. So well done. Hey. I'm so pleased. Hey, that was all right, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was good. That was a good way to end. I love it. Yeah, great. Cheers, Stephen.